Okay, we are back. I'm very happy to have from Thailand businessman Bill Heinecke, who has a very unique approach both to philanthropy as well as to his business, which has around 45,000 people who once a year he gives them a day off so that they can go do charity. Bill is a great example of a person being both successful in business and carrying that forward to philanthropy. A real honor to have you.
Thank you very much, Doug. Glad to be on your show.
So if I could just ask a little background. You started your first business when you were 18 years old, and you had actually borrowed the money to get it going. Could you give us a little bit of the background and the story?
Well, I started the company as an alternative to going off to university, and I was at the age of 18, which is often considered a minor by most countries, being under the age of 21, and that's how the company got its name. It was started as minor holdings.
And what were you thinking you would end up doing?
I really didn't know. I think when you start out like that, it was really an alternative to going off to university. I didn't really want to leave Thailand. I wanted to stay on and start my company. And as you said, I borrowed a rather small amount of money at very high interest rates. I think we were paying 5% a month, which is 60% a year. So you really had to make a success of it quick. And we repaid that loan in about 3 months and never looked back, so to speak, although we've had our ups and downs, which you can certainly read about in my book.
Mm-hmm. So what made you decide to go to Thailand to do this?
Well, I came with my parents when I was 13. I've been living in Asia since the age of about, I guess 4 or 5, and I've been out here since in Asia for nearly 60 years, and 51 years of it is in Thailand.
When you started, you said we started. Did you have partners, or were you doing this on your own?
No, I guess that's the royal we, but certainly over the years we've had lots of help from people, and we have had partners, and today we're a public company. We're one of the largest public companies in Thailand. We're in the SET index fund of the top 50 companies, and so we do have partners, and we certainly have had a lot of friends that have helped along the way.
Do you still consider yourself an entrepreneur, even though now you run a very, very established business?
Yes, because I think even though it's an established business, we're very opportunistic. We'll still look at opportunities all over the world where we think there may be a chance to do well, and as long as it's within our focus of hospitality. So, we went into Australia a few years back. That wasn't on the agenda, but we had an incredible opportunity. So I guess that was an illustration of acting with an entrepreneurial flair.
Sometimes when large companies try to continue expanding, they just end up imploding. As an investor, as an individual person who's looking for a company as a long-term investment, is there a way to judge whether a company might be successful and become bigger, or whether they're just getting too big for their britches?
I think a lot depends on whether the entrepreneur is prepared to build an organization, and that means building the bench strength and what have you. We've been a public company since about 1991, and I saw a number the other day that was put out by one of the analysts that we've returned a compounded return of over 30% per annum to our shareholders every year since the year 2000. So we've continued to grow at a fairly rapid rate. That's a total return based on both our share price, dividends, stock dividends, cash dividends, what have you. But again, I think entrepreneurial companies tend to be high growth companies, but I don't think they need to necessarily be high risk companies.
So to what do you attribute your success, let's say, compared to competitors?
I think one, I've always been very passionate about what we do, and second, I've never really found an easy way to make money. So everything requires hard work. I keep looking though, but I haven't found any easy ways to make money.
All right. So one of the things that you've done is you've written a book, The Entrepreneur. How did you find time to write it, since you're so busy working hard?
Well, I think that came at a time when Thailand and Asia went through what we call the Tom Yum Kung crisis, or the Asian crisis. And I had a little bit of time on my hands because we fell on, when the baht devalued by 100%. It went from 25 baht to the dollar to 50. Basically, our debts doubled, and technically we were bankrupt, but we sort of persevered through that difficult time, never made any of our banks take any haircuts, and for that I think we earned a lot of respect. And we worked hard, and within I guess 2 years we emerged, but it certainly learned a lot of lessons, and I thought it would be useful to put them into a book, and we donated the proceeds from that book, which you can find on Amazon or Kindle or what have you, to charity. So, and I've gotten many letters over the years from entrepreneurs that have found it useful, and it covers a lot of the things and keys that I found to be instrumental in our success.
We're talking with Bill Heinecke, who is a ultra successful entrepreneur, but he's really running an established business. But as he's been explaining to us, from Thailand, he has set up a global enterprise. And one of the things you mentioned, Bill, which I'd like to also bring down to regular people listening, is that you said that given the leverage you had and the borrowing you had, you were technically bankrupt, but you persevered. These days, people take so much in terms of loans on themselves. Is there a difference, would you say, between a company doing that and an individual doing that?
Not really. I think the responsibility is the same for both. I think if you take on debt, you've got to always be prepared to repay it. But some things make it a little more difficult when a currency of a country devalues. Right now you have no doubt a lot of Russian entrepreneurs that are struggling with a ruble that has dropped by 35% against the U.S. dollar.
I see. So there's yet another concern you have, especially when you're an international business, about how much debt to take on, because you might have to pay it back with the deflated currency.
That's right. And so, I think that's one of the reasons why you don't want to get over-leveraged. I think we've been, at times, highly leveraged. I think today we have a very conservative leverage ratio of probably something in the range of about 1.2 to 1, worth of debt. So we've got lots of firepower to still make some opportunistic acquisitions without stretching ourselves too thin.
Yeah, I think the wisdom you're imparting is very critical. I remember when I got my first mortgage, I bought my first house about, 15, 20 years ago, the banker said, listen, instead of borrowing the money in dollars, or because it was in Israel actually that I was taking the mortgage in shekels, she said, why don't you borrow it in Japanese yen because the interest rates are so much lower? And I said, well, I don't mind paying the interest because if I borrow it in yen, I'm going to have to pay back in yen, and I have nothing to do with Japan as far as my personal economics go. And I think that people really have to remember to make sure that the loans that they take are appropriate for who they are and not just to become a currency gambler.
That's correct. I think, we have investments that stretch from Africa to Australia, but we have a hedge in virtually every country where we've made investments, either by borrowing in that country's currency or by ensuring that our earnings are in U.S. dollars and our borrowings are in U.S. dollars. So we try to naturally hedge all of our investments and our risk.
When you say naturally hedge, you mean the way you described, as opposed to, let's say, buying futures or trading currencies?
That's right.
I understand. So let's go back to your book a little bit. You wrote the book, The Entrepreneur. It gives 25 golden rules. If you were talking to an entrepreneur today, what would you tell him is the most important thing he should think of as he's getting started?
I think, certainly my first rule was, find a vacuum and fill it. And then a lot of rules came off of that. Make sure you do your homework, and you won't be committed if you're not having fun, so make sure you're doing something that you really love. Expect to work hard, but then, I've always said that people play hard, enjoy life. It's awfully, this is not a dress rehearsal for the next life. This is it. So, don't pass up some of the opportunities to enjoy your success. And so I think that's been very, very key. I think also it's important, I've always said one of the chapters is based on learn to sell. If you don't know how to sell, whether you're selling yourself or your company or your services, then you're not going to be very good at whatever you're doing. And I've talked to a lot of people that said they really don't like to sell, don't know how to sell, they can't sell. And I say, well, are you married? And they often say yes. And I say, well, then you convince your wife to marry you, so you must know how to sell yourself. But that's the sort of thing. There's a lot of, I think, interesting rules in that book. And as I said, all the proceeds go to charity. I think part of the importance of business people today is to make sure that their business is, one, sustainable, and two, contribute something back to society.
So as we're wrapping up, let's focus on that one point about charity. One of the things that I've noticed in my day job is that I'm a financial advisor, and I work with people who are trying to, build up their wealth and save for retirement. But the ones that I find are the most successful, frankly, are the ones who give the most in charity. And my theory on this, which I haven't had yet the opportunity to sponsor an academic study, is that the reason why that people are more successful is because they don't see money as just the goal of money to have more and more. They try to see themselves going from success to significance. Do you think there's something to that theory?
I think so. From my view is, I've watched many entrepreneurs in many companies, and it's those that have tried to make a difference, I think, that have been the most successful. And I don't know which sometimes comes first, but certainly they do go hand in hand.
Okay, so I think we'll leave that as a parting bit of knowledge for everyone. We've been talking to Bill Heinecke. Bill, in the last few seconds, just tell people, how's the best way for people to follow your work in your company?
Probably just to go onto our website, Miner International, which you can Google and get on, and that'll connect you to all the things that we're doing, plus our investor page, career page, virtually everything that we're doing around the world. And you can get further information on our corporate social responsibility program as well as our annual report.
Okay, and we will put a link to that at the show notes of today's Goldstein on Gelt show. Bill Heinecke, thanks so much for your time.
You're most welcome, Doug, and thank you for taking the time to reach out to me.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt show with international investment expert Doug Goldstein. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, go to www.goldsteinongelt.com or write to Doug directly at doug@profile-financial.com.